Hi there, it's Paulie here. With my indomitable companion, Mr. Snoots, yay, who accompanies me on many adventures. And boy, have we been on adventures. But I just wanted to share with you one of my all-time favourite pieces of role-playing game design. Now, this is a game called Don't Rest Your Head. There's a supplement for it called Don't Lose Your Mind. This is a superb piece of role-playing game design. It's by Evil Hat Productions. This is a horror game. It has a setting in mind, but we'll touch on some ideas later because this is incredibly adaptable. Now, the basic conceit of this game is that for some reason you haven't slept. Maybe you're worried about something, maybe you're taking drugs, maybe you're on the run from something, maybe you've got terrible problems, maybe something's happened, but you've reached this level of fatigue. Suddenly you see an extra layer to the world. There's doors where there weren't really doors anymore, windows that look through onto like extra vistas of the city that you've never seen. You can now perceive like an extra layer to the world. But the trouble is, the moment that you first see it, the things that live there can now see and smell you. And if you ever fall asleep, they can close in and get you. So you've got to stay awake. They've got a really nice character generation system that uses no attributes or anything at all. There are 5 questions that you have to ask for each character, and it's like, what has happened to you? And that's kind of what's going to drive you, or it might be a cool background piece or whatever. They've got some suggestions. But let's just say, for instance, that you say, well, my character, I'm someone's father. I'm father's little girl. We're sitting down, we're just kind of playing, just playing on the floor and everything. And then I just heard her screaming, and I looked around, and there was some kind of huge clawed hands which had her around the ankles, and it just dragged her into the shadows under the bed. And I flung back the bed, and there's just nothing there. She's gone. She's gone. And I called the police, and basically they wanted to essentially put me in an insane asylum. But no, I've escaped, and I've been looking for her. That's why I can't sleep. I'm looking for her. I'm not insane, you know. No, I'm not insane. Good, excellent. The second layer of all of these questions is, how does it affect me? So we've gone into that a little with that. How does it affect me? I need to find this child, and I have a feeling I'm being pursued by the police. Like out there in the real world, they're after me. Good. There's this series of questions that you ask. Now, some of them are, you have a fatigue talent. It's an ordinary thing that ordinary people can do, but it's something that you can basically push yourself to doing better, but you can really fray yourself into fatigue and just mental haste by doing it. So you might say, well, my guy got into all this trouble because he's a gambler. He's a gambler, and that's what he does. However, his fatigue thing is gambling. He can basically push his gambling rolls. He can stand up there. He can sit there doing an all-nighter gambling. He can do that. Good. There are also some questions about, how does this affect me? What does it do to me? Okay. There is a question of, what is your madness talent? What's that thing that you can't normally do, but in this weird new dreamscape you can? That thing you've dreamed of, that strange thing that's hung around. So you might say, turning sideways. What? Yeah. If I can flick myself suddenly sideways, I can teleport to somewhere else. Says, all right. There will be dice rolled with all these skills. So let's say the dice you roll, the more you roll, the further you go. Okay, that's a good idea. Or you might decide, my guy can suddenly forensically scrabble up walls. Or my guy can just suddenly punch through a wall. Or can plunge into a shadow and come out somewhere else. Or maybe I can just scream. I can scream so loud that it just comes out in this huge stunning cone. And it'll shatter glass and make things freeze in their tracks, and it's just so horrifying. These are imaginary things that, but they're your madness things. You also have fight and flight. You've got 3 basically slots. You can divide them between fight and flight. So you could have all flight and no fight, all fight and no flight, 2 in one, 1 in the other. So you've got a rating that's discipline. Everyone starts with 3. There's a very simple kind of dice pool system in this. You're rolling dice, 1s, 2s and 3s are successes. But it does get more complex than that, and this is where the genius of the game starts to come in. You have a general discipline rating. That is how good you are in general at doing things. When you apply your skill and your calm and your rationale to things. If I fire a gun, I use my discipline. If I try and fix the car, I use my discipline. If I try and very carefully sneak past that guard, I use my discipline. If I try and punch the guy in the nose, I use my discipline. You'll be rolling 3 dice. 1s, 2s and 3s are hits. But you can roll other sorts of dice. You need multiple coloured dice for this. One thing that you can do is you can roll fatigue dice. You can up your character's fatigue. Whenever you roll dice for something, you must roll the character's fatigue level in dice as well. So your skill actually goes up, wackily enough. No, not wackily enough, it's very deliberately. You can add 1 or more fatigue dice to any roll, but at the end of that scene, your fatigue goes up by the number of extra dice that you chose to add. If your fatigue ever reaches 6, then that's it. You fall unconscious. And under normal circumstances, things are just going to literally eat you alive. If you've somehow found a safe space to do it, or you have someone that can carry you to safety, someone that can watch over you if there's some sort of circumstances, good, then it's not absolute death, but otherwise, ooh. Now, the other thing that you can do is you can put in madness dice. As you lose it and things go wrong, you can add madness dice. And that's fine, you put those in and all is well. The umpire, on the other hand, is going to oppose you by rolling their own dice. Each foe that you're fighting or thing that is in your way has its own rating, and those dice are pain dice. That's what the umpire rolls. Now, when you roll dice, whoever gets the most number of successes wins. So if the umpire rolls 5 pain dice and only gets like 2 dice to roll 1, 2 or 3, they've got 2 successes. Our character's rolling 3 dice for his discipline, but he's decided to add like a madness dice, and he's got 1 fatigue, so he has to roll 1 fatigue dice. He's rolling 5 dice, and he's got 3 dice that rolled 1, 2 or 3. Right, they will win the contest. They will smite the foe, they will, sneak past the guard, whatever. But the dice that rolls the highest individual score, as in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, is what dominates in the encounter. So if you have rolled discipline dice and you've got you've scored 1s and 2s and 3s, but your madness dice scored a 6 and that's the highest, then madness is what dominates in the scene. Likewise, fatigue can dominate in the scene, or pain from the umpire can dominate in the scene. Now there's a little way, because the umpire's one can be the one that dominates. If it's a tie, if whoever's got the most in one particular sort of high number, so if you've rolled 2 madness dice and they're both 6s, and the umpire has rolled a pain dice and he's got 1 6, the 2 6s outweigh the 1, so madness would dominate. But if there's a tie in that, then it goes down to the next highest numbers, and down to the next, down to the next. And if for some reason there's still a tie, there's a little thing that basically it says essentially madness trumps fear trumps, discipline trumps madness trumps fear trumps pain. So, but although you might win or lose the contest depending on the number of successes you got, what dominates is important. Now, If madness dominates, your madness goes up, but your discipline permanently goes down. You replace discipline dice with extra madness ones, and you must always roll them. But if your discipline is ever entirely replaced by madness, that's it. You become a nightmare, and you're an NPC now. If, as I said, if fatigue, if that dominates, your fatigue goes up. If discipline dominates, then all is fine. If pain dominates, then the umpire starts putting penalties on your abilities and rolls. So it's like they start pecking away at how you can do things. It starts tearing you to bits. Now, what you can do, of course, is you can heal these things, and there is a currency in the game. So there are two little pots, and there's hope and there is despair. If the character comes through and discipline triumphs and so on, they can earn some hope. But if pain dominates, then the umpire gains some despair. They can spend this to re-roll dice, to add extra dice, to change things in the game. A typical game currency kind of thing. But when they do that, it does go into the player's bowl as potential hope that they can draw on. Likewise, the player can draw on their hope currency. They can spend that for re-rolls, they can spend that for extra dice, but they can also spend one or more of these coins to do things like push back the madness and erase extra madness that they've got and replace it with their discipline again. Lower their fatigue so they can keep on going. Remove those penalties and power through the pain. So that currency is a very important thing in the game, and it's constantly coming in depending on what dominates in those dice rolls. So it's a very dynamic little game system, and it's really interesting. Like I said, it's a character generation system with no attributes. It all comes off these questions that you ask, which all help generate the story that you're going to be going through. You come up with these powers for yourself, and that wonderful, pain and madness and fatigue and discipline system with the hope and despair. Lovely. So they've set up this nightmare city with denizens of the nightmare city, and it's a really cool, creepy, strange setting. So as they do examples through the game, they're showing you some interesting stuff. So that they have a character. As I said, they do one guy that's like, his fatigue thing, he's a gambler. He's lost his child. And I'll be like, right, so he's gone into this dread casino. He's just bet the memory of his daughter's laughter against the chance of a clue of finding where she's gone. Here's the roll. Is he going to push more fatigue into it? However, it is his fatigue thing, so he can actually spend fatigue on it and get extra successes, is how that works. So yeah, it's that kind of thing. There are marketplaces where you can purchase things like memories and emotions, or sell your own. It's quite a creepy setting that they've set up. There are, strange creatures and individuals and things just through this whole city. It's dangerous. There's the paper boys that can, essentially close in and kill you, but they also carry snippets of tomorrow's news. There are, sisters of pain that will drain energy out of creatures, sort of turn them into wraiths, and it is really a lovely horror setting that they've got. And those questions that you asked at the start of the game will give a plot for why you're here and what you're trying to achieve and so on. So that's the basic game. Damned clever. Now, what they've got now is Don't Lose Your Mind. Now this is really cute because, see how it's a flipped book? There's essentially two different books in this back to back. But what they've done is there's an alphabet of things. A is for ants crawling under your skin. See them burst out and then creep back within. And there'll be a little bit of sort of story there about, so how some guys realise the ants are there and trying to kill us all. There'll be a whole thing of what can I do, and these will be like potential madness talents that you can take. That's where this has led you. So the first half of this is this A to Z of things. So the ant thing, like said, okay, what can I do? You're a living, breathing hive, an anthill. You really do have bugs under your skin. If someone cut you in half, they'd see little tunnels and chambers like the ant farm you had as a kid. And yeah, so they'll be like telling you what that means in games terms. You know, B is for breath that curls like a hook. Who will it chill and who will it cook? C is for cabbie, whose car helps you flee. Pay for the ride, but the chat is for free. And yeah, so a cab that can take you places, and yeah, you know, you have to. So this is nice, and the answer, the things that they have is, what could I do with this? How does this break me? You know, what goes wrong when I use it, or how is this costing me? How does it change me? What am I becoming? Yeah, D is for dino with teeth long as knives. He'll swallow you down when he finally arrives. So yes, it's full of lovely ideas and hints on powers you can take. It's got some absolutely, you know, this whole thing is full of great nightmare artwork, and it's yeah, really nightmare artwork. And there's also kind of more, the flip side has monster ideas and some cool little pushes for campaign ideas. Now, why I love this, that innovative task system where different things dominate depending on what type of dice have rolled the highest number. That is damned clever, and the resource management of the in-game currency of hope and despair. This game can be used way outside of this setting. You could use this, for instance, to do something like an Aliens style game, or you could use this to do any really cool horror genre game. The fatigue thing, for instance, you might want to replace it with something else. You could put that down as, you know, fear or terror, or, you know, some other such thing. That is what, and you could change madness for something else. You could change madness to, like, you know, hatred or horror, so that you could tailor make this for the kind of tale you want to tell. I don't know if you ever saw, there was like a rather brilliant TV series called The Locked Room. We played a game based on that idea, using these rules that made a good kind of creeping horror and panic, but as a replacement for any rules that you use for general horror, these are excellent. And that means sci-fi horror, survival horror like Aliens, or survival horror like zombie stuff, or you know, God help us, Event Horizon, all these sorts of things. Hell, even, you know, even battling your way down, you know, haunted spaceships or what have you. This is a great basis. So I think they're very adaptable, and I think they deserve enormously more fame than they've got, because this is a very, very unique piece of game design, which has subsequently quietly influenced a few other systems, like the Aliens role-playing game. I can see its influence there, but I think these guys did a sterling job on this. It's innovative. The rules tell the story, so that as you do those rolls and so on, it lets you know what dominates. What's my character doing? Madness and terror dominates this. The fear dominates this. The fatigue dominates this. The pain dominates this. So the flight and fight responses, you start checking those off as you take damage, and your you have to do responses depending on what's checked off and so on. So it's like you can be forced into like fighting things as the madness takes over, or you can be forced to flee as the madness takes over. So yeah, you're more in the grip of the story, and so way more into actual role playing than just simply, you know, rolling dice against skills and so on. I love it. It's a really good piece of work, a really solid piece of game design, and I would love it if more people took a look at it, particularly if you're planning on designing games that use like horror or emotion or fear. You could turn these sorts of concepts to, you know, love and loyalty and all kinds of things. It's a really good look at game design for story theme. And if you're a game designer, you need to build these kind of tools and start asking yourself, yeah, how is my game going to help people tell their stories and pull them into them? And that's where this thing excels. Anyway, everyone, cheers. Do take a look at the game, and Snoods and I will hopefully see you around a games table somewhere. Look after yourselves, and yeah, hope to catch up with you guys sometime. Bye!